Gilbert, you told me once that everyone has a story that defines them, a moment that divides their life into a before and an after. For me, that moment wasn't when I was diagnosed with cancer. It was when I realized what that diagnosis meant. Not just a battle for my body, but a war for my soul. I'm writing this because I need to tell someone the whole truth. Not just the medical facts, not just the prayers, but the deep, bone-crushing fear that consumed me. The kind of fear that makes you question everything you thought you knew about God and family. My story starts with a curse I thought was mine to carry. It's about a conversation on a porch swing, a stranger with kind eyes, and the old book she left behind. It's about how I learned that the blood you carry doesn't have to be your destiny. I don't know if you'll believe it, but this is what happened. My name is Martha. For most of my life, I believed my blood was cursed. It was a curse not from spells or ancient incantations, but etched into my very being, a poisoned inheritance passed down through generations. The memory of my mother is a ghost that still haunts the quiet corners of my mind. I remember her not as the frail woman ravaged by cancer, but as she was in her prime, a force of nature. Her laughter was a warm, rich sound that filled our kitchen on Sunday mornings, mingling with the scent of cinnamon and coffee. She taught me to knit, her hands moving with a practiced rhythm, and to see the beauty in a cloudy sky. I remember her showing me how to plant a garden, her fingers in the earth, and telling me that life always finds a way, even in the hard ground. Then came the cancer. It was a slow and merciless thief that stole her piece by piece. First, it took her boundless energy, replacing it with a quiet, bone-deep weariness. She'd sit in her favorite armchair, a blanket over her knees, her eyes tracing patterns on the ceiling. Her hands, once so skilled, would tremble as she tried to hold a teacup. Then, it stole her appetite, leaving her too weak to join us at the dinner table. The food she used to love, her famous meatloaf, the lemon meringue pie, sat untouched, its scent a cruel reminder of what we were losing. Finally, in a small sterile hospital room, its walls painted a clinical shade of beige, it stole her breath. I was there, holding her hand, my own shaking as I watched the life drain from her eyes. Her last words were a raw, whispered apology. "I'm sorry, Martha. I'm so sorry for the blood you carry." Those words became my inheritance, a chilling prophecy that echoed in the silence after the funeral. They whispered to me in empty hospital corridors and in the silence between my own heartbeats. For 15 years, I lived with the knowledge that the curse was coming for me. It was a constant companion, a shadow at my back. I watched every mole on my skin, felt every ache in my joints, and feared every change in my body. It dictated my choices. I avoided long-term plans, convinced they would be stolen from me. I held my children a little tighter, a little longer, terrified that each embrace might be our last. I looked at their faces, searching for some sign of the inevitable, some small, cruel echo of the disease that would one day take them too. And then, on a grey Tuesday in October, the prophecy was fulfilled. The doctor sat me down, his face a mask of careful pity. "Colon cancer," he said, his voice quiet, his eyes tilted downward just as they had been 15 years ago. The world tilted on its axis. My faith, my courage, everything I had built my life on, shattered into a million pieces. I was 42, a single mother to 2 incredible children, a woman who had prayed every Sunday. But in that moment, fear swallowed my faith whole. The shadow of my mother's death loomed over me, whispering, "You're next. It's in your blood." That night, I sat in my living room, the house silent, except for the soft hum of the refrigerator. My hands trembled as I clutched a cup of tea that had long gone cold. The floral wallpaper, faded from years of sun, seemed to pulse in the dim light. The room itself breathing with a life I felt I was losing. Up a creaking staircase, I could hear Lily's soft snore through the baby monitor I still kept on my nightstand. Lily was 14, all sharp wit and quiet fire. Her fingers always stained with charcoal from sketching. She wanted to be an artist, to paint the sky the way God saw it, full of colors no one else could name. Noah was 10, with his father's crooked smile and a heart too big for his small frame. He still believed in superheroes, wearing a faded Superman t-shirt to bed every night, a flashlight under his pillow for the monsters. Every time I looked at them, my chest tightened with a crushing guilt. I had passed it on. My blood, the source of their life, was poisoned. What if they're next? What if this curse runs through them too? I started writing letters to them just in case. Letters about who I was, what I loved, what I wanted for them. I hid them in a shoebox under my bed, next to my mother's wedding ring, a morbid dowry of my impending death. The doctor's words blurred into a fog of dread. Surgery, chemotherapy, radiation. My body was a battlefield, but my mind was already surrendering. The sterile smell of the hospital, the constant beeping of machines, the casual pity in the nurse's eyes, it all worked to chip away at my spirit. The treatments were brutal. Each cycle of chemotherapy was a week-long descent into a hell of nausea, bone-deep fatigue, and a metallic taste in my mouth that made even water unbearable. My hair, once thick and brown, began to fall out, in clumps, a constant physical reminder of the poison coursing through me. I was dying, not just from cancer, but from the weight of fear that crushed me day after day. I stopped going to church. I stopped praying. God felt distant, like a stranger who had turned his back on me, a cruel God who had given me a broken body and then abandoned me in my time of need. My children tried to comfort me in their own ways. Lily, ever the artist, would draw me pictures of a sun rising over a dark ocean. "It's you, Mom," she'd say, getting stronger. But all I saw was a lonely sun and a vast empty sea. One evening, as I lay in bed, too weak to move, Lily came in with her sketchbook. She showed me a drawing of a woman, frail but with a defiant expression, standing with a halo of light. "It's Mom and her halo," Noah, who had followed her, explained. "Like a superhero." I smiled, but my heart was breaking. I saw a ghost in that drawing, a ghost of the woman I was, a ghost of the woman I wanted to be for them. What good was the 10-year-old's fight against a force as old and unforgiving as a cursed bloodline? One humid August evening, I sat on my porch, the air thick with the scent of impending rain. The cicadas hummed a restless chorus, and a low rumble of thunder rolled in the distance. I was lost in thought, picturing my mother's final days, her gaunt face, her whispered apologies. Just then, a stranger appeared at the edge of my yard. She was a woman in her 50s, with silver-streaked hair pulled into a loose braid. Her eyes were kind but piercing, and she carried a worn leather satchel. "Evening, Martha," she said, her voice warm but steady. "Mind if I sit?" I blinked, startled. "How do you know my name?" "Small town," she said with a faint smile. "People talk, but I'm not here to pry. I'm here to listen." I wanted to tell her to leave, to mind her own business, but something in her calm presence, a stillness that seemed to defy the gathering storm, made me speak. The words poured out, raw and jagged. I told her about my mother's death, the cancer eating away at me, the terror that my kids would inherit this curse. Esther listened, her face unreadable, but her presence steady. When I finished, my cheeks were wet with tears. She simply reached into her satchel and pulled out a small worn Bible. "Martha," she said softly, "your fears got you believing a lie. You think this cancer's your destiny because it's in your bloodline. But I'm here to tell you something. Your bloodline's been changed." I frowned, wiping my eyes. "What are you talking about?" "My mother, and her mother, and her mother before her. This is our story. This is my blood." She opened the Bible, her fingers finding a passage with practiced ease. Matthew 12, verses 46 to 50. "Listen to this." Her voice was clear and resonant. While Jesus was still talking to the crowd, his mother and brothers stood outside, wanting to speak to him. Someone told him, "Your mother and brothers are standing outside, wanting to speak to you." He replied, "Who is my mother? And who are my brothers?" Pointing to his disciples, he said, "Here are my mother and my brothers. For whoever does the will of my Father in heaven is my brother and sister and mother." She closed the Bible and looked at me, her eyes blazing with conviction. "Do you understand what Jesus is saying here?" I shook my head, confused. "He's talking about his family. It's just a story about a family reunion that didn't happen." "No," Esther said, her voice firm but gentle. "Think about the scene, Martha. Imagine the crowd pressing in to hear Jesus speak. He is a man of a specific family, from a specific bloodline, with a specific history. And on the outskirts of this crowd, his biological family arrives. The people bound to him by the same blood he shared with his mother, Mary. A messenger goes to him, interrupting his teaching with this message. He could have excused himself. He could have said, "My family's here, I must go." But he doesn't. Instead, he uses it as a moment to reveal something profound, something world-changing. He asks, "Who is my mother and who are my brothers?" He's not being dismissive, Martha. He's inviting them and everyone else into a different kind of family. Esther leaned forward, her eyes holding mine. He's saying that the deepest, most eternal bond isn't blood, it's faith. It's the shared commitment to doing the will of his Father. He is redefining family itself, showing that a connection to God is more powerful and more permanent than any genetic inheritance. He is telling you and everyone who will listen that a connection to God is more powerful and more permanent than any genetic inheritance. And you, Martha, as a believer, are part of that new family. Your bloodline isn't your mother's anymore, it's Christ's. Her words hit me like a thunderclap. I wanted to argue, to tell her it was nonsense, but something stirred inside me. A flicker of hope, fragile but real. "But my mother died of this," I whispered. "I'm dying of it. My kids." "Your kids are not bound by that curse," Esther interrupted, her voice firm. "You've been letting fear tell you who you are. But Jesus says you're his. He rejected the idea that blood defines destiny. He chose a new family, one built on faith, and you're part of it. You're not carrying a curse, Martha. You're carrying Christ's promise." Esther stood, leaving the Bible on the swing beside me, and walked into the gathering dusk. I called after her, my voice thick with desperation. "Wait, who sent you?" But she didn't turn back. It was as if she'd vanished, swallowed by the shadows. I ran to the edge of the porch, but the street was empty. the flickering lights and the heavy rain, the only witnesses to our meeting. That night, I couldn't sleep. Esther's words echoed in my mind, a battle cry against the fear that had rooted itself in my heart. I opened the Bible she'd left, its pages thin and soft. I read the passage again and again, tracing the words with my finger. Whoever does the will of my Father in heaven is my brother and sister and mother. I thought about Jesus, standing before a crowd, pointing to his disciples, ordinary, flawed people, and calling them family. I thought about my own life, my faith that had dimmed under the weight of this diagnosis. I prayed, not out of habit, but out of a raw, desperate need. I prayed for strength, for healing, for the courage to believe Esther's words. The next morning, I woke with a strange resolve. My body still ached, my energy was still drained, but something had shifted. I went to Lily's room. She was asleep, her sketchbook open on the bed, a drawing of a woman standing in a storm, arms outstretched toward a distant light. I kissed her forehead and went to Noah's room. He was hugging his Superman pillow. I sat on the edge of his bed and whispered, "You're not cursed, baby. You're chosen." I started praying again, not out of habit, but out of desperation. I prayed for strength, for healing, for the courage to believe Esther's words. I began reading the Bible daily, clinging to passages about God's promises. I even went back to church, though my steps were shaky and my body weak. The congregation welcomed me, their prayers wrapping around me like a shield. But the fear didn't vanish overnight. There were days when it clawed at me, especially after chemo sessions. I'd lie in bed, too sick to move, imagining my kids growing up without me. On those days, I'd open the Bible to Matthew 12 and read it aloud, letting the words drown out the whispers of doubt. I started speaking to the cancer, rejecting it as part of my identity. "I am not my mother's daughter in this," I'd say. "I am Christ's sister, and this curse has no hold on me." Weeks turned into months, and something inexplicable began to happen. My doctors, usually cautious with their words, started using phrases like unexpected progress and remarkable response. My scans showed the tumor shrinking, then stabilizing, then impossibly disappearing. I remember the day my oncologist, a man who had seen too many tragedies to believe in miracles, sat across from me, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Martha," he said, holding up my latest scan, "there's no sign of cancer. It's gone. I don't know how to explain this." I laughed, tears streaming down my face. "I do. I never found Esther. I asked everyone around town, but no one knew her. Some said she'd been passing through. Others swore they'd never seen her. I began to wonder if she'd been more than a missionary. If God had sent her to pull me out of the darkness. Today I stand in my kitchen, watching Lily sketch at the table and Noah play with his toy cars on the floor. My body is strong again, my heart full. I'm not naive. I know cancer can return, that life holds no guarantees, but I'm no longer defined by fear."
Some stories end loud, with sirens, shouts, or a slamming door. Others end quietly, like a candle burning out at dawn. But all of them leave something behind. A question, a scar, a prayer. I fold this one away, not to forget, but to remember that even in the ashes, God still speaks. Until next time, my name is Gilbert, and I am the listener.